You are watching a clip from the Sketchy AF podcast here on the Shivery Studios YouTube channel. New episodes post every Friday, so don't forget to subscribe.
I have an experience that changed my life, and I want to share it with you. I lost my mother a few years ago, unfortunately, in a very bad way.
Very sorry to hear that.
Before moving here to England, so 8 years ago, something like that. It was horrible. And she was completely paralyzed. It was with the mind working, but the
Yeah,
body no. So it was horrible. She was crying all day. It's horrible. I remember one of the many hospitals she was there. There was a long corridor, and it was the last room on the right. And so you have to cross all the corridor. And there were a lot of elderly people in the other rooms. And someone was screaming, someone was yelling, someone was very offensive. I feel desperation,
yeah,
rage, frustration. At the end of the corridor, I stopped and I said, "There's something here." I was really shaking. There's something wrong here. I turned back and I said, "Okay, I never be like that. If I reach the age of 80, I want to be the 80 years old man to read love stories, that read books to kids, that laugh, that play, that go to
yeah,
bicycle, and not the one that is screaming there, yelling offensive things to the nurse because he's no." But then it was not judgmental against her. I said, "You know what kind of life they had." But I found like a sense of loss.
yeah,
So if we allow people to reach that point, something is really wrong.
yeah.
And so I said, I don't
No,
want to
I
be like
completely
that.
agree.
And so I made a lot of decisions that day, crossing that corridor. Walking along that corridor. I said, no, no, no. I want this, I want this, I want this. And I'm working to reach that point.
Well, it's one of those situations where I think that whenever you find yourself in moments where it is very, very trying, like we lost my grandfather there about a year and a half, 2 years ago now, and again, that was one of those situations that I felt restarted my motivation to try and pursue my passions. You know, there was so many little elements that went into it, and I mentioned about the stuff with my kids and wanting to show them that this is a path that they could walk. But there are little moments where we're, I think, faced with extreme adversity, and it's about how we respond to that. And sometimes big and very negative and difficult situations like that can put things into perspective for us of what matters, what is important. And I find myself, my grandfather had died, and we did the whole funeral, and we went straight to, he had an interesting funeral because he was not a religious man whatsoever, so we didn't want to go to a church and have a church ceremony. The coffin left his house and went through the town and went all the way to the graveyard. And then when we got to the graveyard, there was no priest, there was no religious official whatsoever, and the speeches there at the graveside were given by my father, my uncle, and then me. And I kind of remember standing in that situation, being completely unprepared, stood in front of this
Mm.
giant group of people, still experiencing the huge grief of the situation because he was one of the most important figures in my life. And I just spoke, and I spoke about him, his life, the way that I felt about him, and the lasting impact that he had had in my life. And it was a real moment where I thought, I need to really take this approach to my own life, where I one day the curtain comes down for me, and I need to think about what is the impression people will have of the life that I've led. And I don't want them to say, someone who hadn't really followed their dreams, someone who had something so unique to them, but they didn't ever let it out into the world. And I just remember that moment being one of those things where it was the beginning of gears in my head beginning to turn and beginning to make me think more about, I need to have a change. I need something different to come along in this path, and I need to be active in chasing down this pursuit of my dreams. And it is just such a strange thing because, again, it comes back to that saying, you grow through what you go through, and all of these situations are going to come, and it's just, how do you respond to those situations?
Yeah.
What does it elicit within you? And yeah, actually, when you were saying that story about walking down the corridor, I felt a very, very similar experience in that time, walking behind that hearse, walking through the town, and just thinking, I need to do something different. I need to change what I'm doing with my life.
Yeah,
And
I don't know what
it's
your
it's
dreams are, but I saw your channel and everything, and for me that is already a big dream. because the videos that you're doing are very inspirational. They are very beautiful. They're very technical too. I mean, they are not banal. I mean, I discovered your channel when we entered in contact, and I was
Yeah.
overwhelmed with it because it's addictive. You start, I mean, I start drawing the last days, drawing and listening to you. Sometimes I lost.
Oh.
Oh no, I don't know what to do because now I have to read it. But it's beautiful. I think that
Oh, thank
when
you.
we're doing the sharing the ideas and making people communicate with
Yeah.
with themselves, even with others, is the sharing process is really, really important.